Hey, good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I'm your host, and I would like to welcome our guest today. She's a phenomenal person, I can tell. I just met her though for the first time, so this is going to be exciting. Dr. Kate Balestrieri. Did I say it right?
You did. You did. Thank you. It's so nice to be here, Ken. Thanks for having me on your show.
Thank you for taking the time. You're out in California, so I know it's fairly early out there still. So way earlier than I like getting up for. So I thank you for doing that. So and we were introduced by a mutual friend, Joe Ingram. So thank you, Joe, if you watch this. So Dr. Kate, is it okay to call you Dr. Kate?
Yes, of course.
Now, were you born and raised out there?
No, I was born in Wisconsin, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
And I lived there, until I was 20. And then I moved to Chicago for many, many years. Then I moved to LA about 6 years ago.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
And what took you from Chicago? Did you go to college in Chicago? Or?
I did. Yeah. I finished all of my schooling in Chicago, and I love that city so much. It's just so cold.
It is brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm in Ohio, so
I
know. Yeah. I mean, Chicago's a little bit colder than here, but it's still cold.
Yeah.
So you went from there to LA. What took you to LA?
Well, Chicago winters, frankly.
Is that the reason?
It's a big reason. Yeah. I lived in Chicago for about 13 years and change. And really, I love that city. It's in my blood. Yeah. But there were a couple of pretty cold winters, and I was at a point in my life when I just felt like I needed to make a change and think about, if this is going to be my life for the rest of my life, right? I was a newly minted psychologist, and I really felt like I want to take some time and consider what is the best lifestyle to, endure isn't the right word, but to, go through the rest of my life living. And when I really looked at all of the beautiful cities that our country has to offer, Los Angeles, for me, felt like a great opportunity. And I had some family here, so it made a good choice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So did you go out there because I know you're a psychologist, you're a sex therapist.
Yeah.
I know that I think that's the first time I've ever said that on this show.
Sex therapist or sex?
Yeah. Yeah, either. I don't know. But so when you did you start a private practice out there, or?
Yeah, I'll give you a little bit of the backstory. This is not my first career. So before I got into the field of psychology, I actually was an insurance broker. I worked for Humana, which is a big insurance company, for a while. And then I moved into doing employee benefit plans, and I loved it. It was amazing work. Yeah. But what I found myself really compelled toward most in the work was listening to the different employees of the companies that I supported and hearing their stories. And the more I thought about all the things they were going through, and really found a lot of joy and reward in helping them navigate their insurance platforms, I thought, I really love helping people more directly. So I decided to go back to school, and I pursued a degree in psychology, and then went on to get a master's and a doctorate. And yeah, it was a long journey, but I really am grateful that I made that decision.
Wow.
But my work in psychology originally started in the forensic world. So I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist. And historically, my work was really in the prison systems. And I spent the better part of about 10 years working with different high-risk sex offenders and non-sexual offenders, doing evaluations and treatment and testimony in courts related to, treatment efficacies and recommendations around parental unification and reintegration into the community. So it was really lovely work, but it's a bit of an arduous system to work in sometimes. So I thought I would take some time and take a stab at private practice in Chicago, and I really loved it. So that is sort of where I transitioned. Then I had the epiphany how much I hated snow and cold weather.
Yeah.
Only took
I've
me a
had
few.
that epiphany so many times.
Yeah. It seems like such a surprise every winter, but one year I was like, wow, I actually have a choice in where I live. Maybe I should exercise that choice.
Wow.
Yeah,
So, why? I mean, so you worked in the prison system.
I did.
Do you see the shock on my face? So, why?
Why are you so shocked? Why?
I don't know. Like, I can't picture you like in with a bunch of hardcore criminals.
Why?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well,
Wow.
it was, honestly, I have to say it was one of the most rewarding places to work because
Really?
this is, yeah, I mean, when you think about the prison systems, I think most people are really quick to write it off as the world's kind of untouchables or sort of forgettable populations. And I can understand, why it's challenging sometimes to have empathy for people who are in prison. But in my experience, I got to see what compels the most hideous and heinous of human behaviors, and also some of the most benevolent and magnanimous of human behaviors. So for me,
Wow.
it was really, kind of a beautiful experience, and not without its challenges for sure, but
Yeah.
really a great place to understand the depths of the human condition.
Wow. I mean, I'm not, and I definitely am not judging anyone that's been ever. I wouldn't. I'm a
Yeah.
recovered alcoholic myself, so
Yeah.
my past has speckles in it.
Wow.
But and I think anybody alive has.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all done dumb things. So,
Yes.
yeah, I have a T-shirt that's I wore it out. But when you were like you made a conscious decision though that I'm going to go work with people that have been
Mhm.
incarcerated for sex crimes. It
Yes.
sounds like.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible to me. I don't know why. That just I think maybe the reason is obviously television makes prison seem like you're gonna walk in and it's not gonna be good no matter who you are.
Right.
But it doesn't sound like you had that experience going in and helping these people.
The experience of it not being good?
Well, right. It sounds like it was much different than what TV portrays.
Well, in some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. And there were definitely some dicey situations,
Yeah.
and there were a lot of precautions that allowed me to feel safe-ish.
Yeah.
But it's not the kind of place that you want to drop your guard. And certainly, that working in that environment creates a level of hypervigilance, whether you're a psychologist, a correctional officer, a nurse, an administrator, or frankly, even for the inmates. So
Yeah.
it's a really interesting and fascinating study
Yeah.
on human behavior.
So then you went for, and that was in Chicago.
Yes. And in California. I did a little work in the prison
Oh, did you?
systems out here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you end up in California in Los
Mhm.
Angeles,
Mhm.
and you did not start your private practice immediately, or you?
I did. So when
Okay.
I moved out to California, I had one brother who lived here,
Okay.
and maybe two or three friends that I knew either through graduate school or through other friends. So my network was pretty small, and
Okay.
the way that I chose to get started was to work at different treatment centers and really parlay the experiences that I'd had professionally in my career to that point to work in different residential facilities. So I worked at a program that's now closed, but I worked in their substance abuse and intimacy disorders program and ran that program. So it was a great opportunity to look at a lot of the behaviors that I had seen in different treatment contexts in a residential facility. I was working with people who had a lot of compulsivity in their sexual relationships and romantic relationships, and that was coupled with a lot of substance abuse disorders. So, I was able to work with that world, and simultaneously I started a private practice. And then as my practice practice continued to grow. I worked in some other treatment centers, and about 3.5 years ago, I opened Triune Therapy Group, which is a group therapy practice in Los Angeles. Excuse me. And that was a really rewarding experience. We worked with sex addiction, love addiction, sexual trauma, eating disorders, all different kinds of chemical addictions and substance use disorders. I mean, really at the core of it all, regardless of whether you're treating addiction or other mental health conditions, my focus really is on understanding the role that trauma plays in people's lives.
Yeah.
And how that has created dis-ease for them and helping them heal that and then move into a position of thriving in their world.
So awesome. I love what I like I said, I'm 17 and a half years sober. And prior to that, I had a career of fooling psychologists, but it was real. And what I discovered obviously is I was fooling myself. Right. Because those tests I thought I was passing them. I'm like, I got this. I had one woman go, "You're like a ticking time bomb. You realize that if you keep drinking." So, so I love what you're doing. Joe just said it. You're a human angel. That's awesome.
That's very kind.
I have another friend of mine on here, James Bodwin, that says he's followed you for years on Instagram.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you for that support. Appreciate that.
He says you're awesome. So, I think that, so as you got into this, was there any particular area? I mean, again, I know that you're doing the sex counseling or sex therapy, right?
Yeah.
So is that like for couples? Is that what your primary focus is now? Or
I mean, I work with individuals, I work with couples, I work with people in non-traditional relationships. Really, again, I'm trying to help people understand where they have any kind of experiences in their past that are getting in the way of them living the lives that they want with an optimal relational focus. So sometimes that looks like working with them in a context of sex therapy, helping people understand where they're struggling sexually or where they have hurts and how to really sort of catapult into a place where they can have a really exciting, fulfilling, rewarding, mutual sex life with their partner.
Right.
Other times it looks like helping people understand really the role that trauma has played in their lives so they can be more productive at work, so they can be better friends, so they can show up as a more effective parent, a kinder daughter or son, so they can really, be the person that they want to be. Sexuality notwithstanding, but not the forefront of their issues.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So do you find, and I dated a lady years ago that's a psychotherapist, and she has been for many years. And I watched, and she's very spiritually grounded, but she would still, I could tell when she had a rough day, so to speak, right? So she heard or went through whatever with somebody that. How do you disconnect from that personally? Like when you're, because you have to absorb some of that energy. How do you disconnect from that?
Well, I think not unlike an emergency room physician who maybe when they first start their career, they're a little bit more impacted by some of the high acuity cases that come through the emergency room doors. Early career clinicians in psychology really have to protect themselves and practice a lot of self-care. Now, that doesn't stop when they stop being early career clinicians. And one of the things that I often tell my staff and my students is that self-care in our industry is not a luxury. It's an ethical mandate. And we have to practice good boundaries around work, setting aside time that is just ours to take care of ourselves. We have to learn how to say no so that we can emphatically say yes. We have to be sure that we're staying on top of research so that we're not, using any kind of subjective influence in how we work with people. We really have to stay connected with other professionals because the work of a psychologist or a therapist is one directional with patients by design, right? We're here for our patients. And so that can create for clinicians a lot of need for their own needs to get met outside of that. So it's really important that they get good at recognizing those needs and making sure that they find ways to meet them so they can show up and be refreshed and competent in their work.
That's incredible. So what about the people that, how deep, and I'm very familiar, the old saying, denial is not a river in Egypt. But, I'm very familiar with denial, obviously, personally. What first, with denial, I'm sure you see it every single day, but how do you help people confront that? How do you help people get out of denial? I had Andy Frisella on the show, who's the CEO of First Form and founder, and he convinced me and my wife to do 75 hard, which is a workout regimen. And we both lost 30 pounds in 75 days. It was insane. And, I walked by the mirror every morning in complete denial about being a fat ass, pardon my language. But I was like, how do you get people out of denial?
Well, I think one of the things to remember is that people go into denial because their brain is trying to keep them safe from some sort of information that if they were not in denial would be really hard for them to know. And so I think when we honor that sort of resistance around reality as a protective function, it starts to get a lot easier to help people maybe take in smaller doses of information and from different angles so that they themselves can come to reality in a way that feels palatable and doesn't overwhelm their nervous system. There's a reason that we do this. We're trying to say, hey, I can't take anymore. And denial is one of our most primitive defense mechanisms. So when that is the driving force, I think we have to really first find a way to respect that part of the person that's really working hard to keep them intact, and then try to find some backdoor ways to create insight opportunities. And people will see what they need to see when they're ready to see it, when they can. So if somebody's really holding on to that denial, one of the first things that I'll help them do is develop other resources, develop other internal resources so that their brain and their body can say, oh yeah, I actually am strong enough to take in this other information. So, okay, let me open the door and see what's back there, right? And so once that's the key for them, they're able to, again, take another look and maybe have some different insights. But people have to be ready.
That's true. It took every single last drop of alcohol I had to get me into recovery,
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to go before,
Yeah.
So with the current conditions that we're in right now, how are you, first off, has it impacted you or your business in any negative way at all, this whole lockdown thing?
Well, I have to say I'm very fortunate and grateful that I am able to work remotely and that I do have the capacity to work with most of the patients that I've been seeing remotely, for those people for whom it's still feasible to come in. This time has come at sort of an interesting time for me because I'm actually in the process of starting a separate private practice and a whole new mental health platform online. So it's a unique time. And I feel fortunate that I am in a position to very soon, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, the new platform will be launched. And we plan on giving people a lot more access to mental health care and in ways that they don't have to be in the office anyway. So, we were sort of right on the precipice of that.
That's so
happening.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Congratulations for that too.
Thank you.
So what are you, are there any, I can't even imagine, like I'm used to, I work from home. So I'm like people are like, how's lockdown going? I'm like, it's just another day to me. Like, if I venture out, it's to go get some Chipotle or something. Like, you know, but for a lot of people, this is a whole new like mental and emotional dynamic. Like they how are you seeing people deal with this? Number one. Number two, what would you say somebody could do to get into the right state of mind with what's going on?
Well, I think one of the key things to remember is that for many people who have worked from home prior to coronavirus, that was a choice they made.
Right.
So they went into it with autonomy. They went into it with hopefully the ability to set up their workspace in a way that really felt conducive and sustainable for them. And I think one of the biggest struggles that I'm seeing right now is that the stay-at-home orders for many states happened very quickly, and people didn't have the ability to set up a workspace that really felt sustainable, and it wasn't a choice. So whenever something happens that we're not walking into volitionally and we're not ready for, it's even more difficult to make those adjustments. So when I talk about it with people, I think one of the things that is really important to continue reiterating is just how resilient we all have the ability to be in our adjusting to this very quick, complete 180 in the way many people work and experience their day-to-day lives. So I think, there's a lot of good that can be gleaned from that when we look at it from the perspective of how well most people are able to make those changes. Now, some of the things that people are really reporting is feeling closed in, and if they're sheltering in place alone, really feeling the oppression of their loneliness and the hopelessness of not knowing when they're going to be able to get back out and just be with friends and family or date again. And a lot of people who are in coupleships or who are sheltering in place with their family, they're grateful for that, and also starting to kind of bump up against the fact that they don't have a lot of other outside interests or distractions that can be a buffer. So they're getting irritated with their partner more easily. They are feeling a little bit like, oh, I have to look at the four walls and my same old spouse every day. I need some distractions.
Right.
So I think it's important just to remember that every single day we're all going through this. We're living it in real time. So there's no instruction manual, there's no blueprint, and give yourselves a break, and understand that it's not a linear process of experiencing this or navigating it. So there may be days when you feel okay and you feel like you have the bandwidth to be silly or goofy or to exercise. And there may be days where you're like, I just can't even. And that's okay, right? That is okay. So just honor whatever your experience is and talk with your partner about it or your family about it if you're sheltering in place with people. And definitely stay connected with people if you're alone sheltering in place, because humans are not meant to be alone. And if there's one thing that really hit home from working in my time in prison, it's that being in isolation for a long period of time can take a big toll on the human psyche. And so we are grateful that we live in a world where, I should say we can be grateful we live in a world where technology makes some element of connection still possible. And I encourage people to take advantage of that, because it's hard doing all of this, and it's okay for it to be hard.
Yeah.
Right. For us to acknowledge that.
I have a Sunday night show with my buddy Glenn Morshower, who's been a Hollywood actor for 45 years. He's on the TV show The Resident. He called me and said, hey, I want to do a show with you. And it was to exactly what you're talking about, is to get some positivity out into the world and get people to participate in stuff like this. So, you're right. And it really does make a difference.
Yeah, it does.
It does.
It does. I find that just going for walks in the afternoon, there are lots of things that people are experiencing as they are, kind of venturing out of their homes to get groceries or to get a little bit of fresh air and things like that. But I think it's been a curious exploration of human behavior to really see, how do people treat each other when they're outside? How do you recognize if your threshold for discomfort is different than someone else's? And can we be empathic to other people's differences of opinion around how to proceed in these times? And I think, it's really key that we're all staying communicative and open and recognizing that we have different starting points in our, foraging through all of the confusion that is happening right now. And so let's just remember to, be cognizant of that with others.
Yeah. So, and I, for anybody, you have to go here in a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
I know. But one last question I'd like to ask you is, people that right now, and there is a huge problem globally with people feeling stuck.
Yes.
Like they just feel stuck right now.
Yeah.
And, I know that a buddy of mine runs the suicide prevention hotline for the state of Ohio. And he said that the calls are just through the roof. And what do you say to those people that are feeling completely hopeless right now and not because what is the uncertainty?
Yeah.
It's so insane right now. What do you say to those people to give them a little bit of hope and pull through this?
Yeah, it's difficult to know just what to say, and I would hate to be too reductionistic in prescribing any one thing to a whole group of very diverse people experiencing this. But one of the things that comes up for me around this is just to validate this is really hard for a lot of people, and hard for people in ways that others may not even be able to imagine and fathom. So if you're someone out there who's really struggling and you're feeling alone, please remember that there are resources out there that are available for you. And there are a lot of therapists who are offering free or low cost therapy or online coaching right now to help people get through these times. Yeah. And whatever the financial impact, whatever some of the other impacts may be, it doesn't have to be the end of your story.
I love that. I just love, I meditate every day, and I'm really in tune with other people's energy. Your energy is just incredible. Oh. I follow you on Instagram too. So
thank you.
You're awesome. And I just want to say thank you. I know it's super early out there, and I appreciate you, taking the time to come on and spend a few minutes with us this morning and delivering some hope.
Oh, well, I appreciate that so much, Ken. Thanks for having me on today. And likewise about your energy. I've just really appreciated all of our back and forths getting ready for today. So thank you.
Well, Joe certainly helped.
Yes.
Yes. It's a trip. Anyway, well, thank you so much. And I'm going to go ahead and end this live stream. But thank you so much. Thank you to anyone who's watched and shared this out. And hang on 1 second. Don't hang up on me yet. Okay. And we will see you guys later. Have a great day. Thanks so much, Dr. Kate.
Thank you.